Meeting for November 7th. I ask you to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have the roll, please.
Vaughn,
Here.
Sullivan, Shower,
Here.
Kenny,
Here.
Gustafson,
Here.
Clistic,
Here.
Belzak.
Here.
6 present.
We
1
have
absent.
we have a quorum. It takes us to questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. We put this on our agenda a few years ago. This is for residents who may have something to share with the council that's not on our agenda. And this way, they don't have to wait till the end of the meeting. They get to come up to the microphone and state it now. So does anyone in the audience have anything they'd like to share with the council at this point? If you would, please come up forward and just give us your name.
There's still time at the end for council.
Yes. This is just so that people don't have to wait till the end. Okay. That takes us to approval of our minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the October 17th, 2022 City Council meeting. Moved by Alderman Belzak, seconded by Alderman Shower. Any questions or comments? If none, the roll.
Belzak.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Clistic,
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
The minutes have been approved. Takes us to receiving of communications. Do any of the aldermen have communications they'd like to share with the council? Alderman Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received a communication from Fred Wilson regarding somebody coming through his house at like early in the morning, like 2:45 in the morning, cut on a Ring doorbell, and it was an advertisement for some kind of landscaping or something. So I forwarded it over to Chief, which was kind of odd for somebody to be going out that late or that early. And then I got communication from Bruno Hall regarding the next door, City Darien's post on the next door regarding leaves. And whatever was posted, he had a question about it, but it was, look into it. So I responded back to him, what do you want us to look into?
Yeah, I ended up seeing that also, and what he didn't like was the fact that we had asked people to call 911 if they see people raking leaves into the
Right.
street, and I clarified that because normally those calls might come into the administrative line, or somebody might tell somebody, which is a similar problem to what we have in other communications. So we just were clear to say call 911, so we have a record of it, and so we can get out there timely
Okay.
to either talk to the landscaper or residents that's doing that. And that's the same, I mean, we didn't change that. That's pretty much the same post we've been using.
Okay. Yeah, that's all he says. Could you look into it? And I had no idea why he was asking. So, all right, thank you.
Anything else, Joe?
That's all.
Anybody else? Alderman Gustafson.
I did receive an email from Mr. Gorski regarding indicating concern that there are too many street signs in Darien, that a lot of them block one another. He gave specific examples, and most of those specific examples were for county roads. So I sent that information off to Dan. Dan sent it to the county, and the county responded, said they would do an evaluation.
He's talking about the regulatory signs, the speed signs.
Signs and everything else.
Oh,
And
really?
he gave some specific examples on 75th Street there.
Where he
that
felt
were-
one sign blocked.
One
and
sign
all.
was kind of blocking the other, that
Really?
type of thing. So we sent it, I'll take a ride around with Dan too, but most of them were county roads, so Dan sent it to the county. And the county responded right away, said they would go out and look at those specific examples
Okay,
and take a look and see
All right.
if there is an issue there.
okay.
I did also another one. I did spend a few hours Sunday at a friend's house actually in Ward 2 that lost power. There were 60 homes over on Plainfield Road that lost power. The tree in their backyard fell and hit the power line.
Okay.
Took the power line. There were 60 homes that were impacted. ComEd contracted out to get the tree pulled out. They couldn't do that until Sunday because of the high winds on Saturday. And then the ComEd also can't contract it out in the electrical portion of the piece of it. So it was about 24 hours from the time they lost power to the time the power was restored.
Thanks, Eric.
So they're getting they're actually, and I talked with Dan about getting the tree and stuff removed, but they're having a service. They're actually getting their larger tree in their front yard also removed. They take care of that.
All right.
I did receive, some various emails from residents regarding the District 66 referendum that's on the ballot tomorrow. And I just want to make it clear, I want to formally state that as an alderman, I don't take any position on a candidate, on the amendment that's out there, or any of the two referendums on the November 8th ballot. I only encourage people to get out, get educated, and vote. And if you go back and look at the prior recordings of these meetings, that's exactly how I've addressed it. So I just want to make everybody clear that as an alderman, I don't take any position. I just encourage voting. And it sounds like voting is an excellent turnout. That's great. I hope the more and more, the better tomorrow.
Yeah, like I said, today we went to Safety Village to vote, and it was a little over an hour to get in there to vote. And I think tomorrow it'll probably be more crowded than it was today,
That's great.
which is a good thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Anything else? Alderman Klista?
Thank you, Mayor. This past week, I had the lucky opportunity to join the Darien Economic Development Council committee, where they went over planning for the city, long-term planning. And one of the items that was brought forward, I wish I could have taken credit for this, but by Mr. Thomas Pasias, am I saying that correctly? Thomas, the landscaper gentleman.
Tom Pappas.
Pappas, correct. And one of the items he mentioned is with regards to beautification of certain areas of Darien. Some ideas that he had were adding a small little parks within Darien, additional parks. One comment that came up is that he's part of the Lions Club, and they have an event or a fundraiser where they have breaks that they put in the Darien Community Park, but he'd like to see somewhere else that we could potentially put it at. And one of the comments I brought up is one piece of property that we've looked at for quite a while. I call it the political triangle there on Plainfield and Clarendon Hills Road is actually for sale. And I would actually like to go on a record if anyone would be interested from council, if we'd be interested in potentially purchasing this. Right now it's around like $75K. A couple years ago it was like $170, $150 from what I've been told. And potentially develop it as a small park, potentially as an entrance to the city, potentially something with the Lions Club. I think there's a lot of opportunity with that property, but it's for sale right now. And so I'd be curious if maybe this is probably for next week or for further down the line, if anyone would be interested in budgeting or looking at potentially purchasing that piece of property. You can't build a house there. I believe it's on some zoning long-term plan for the city to be developed, but now is the time to move on that piece of property if this is something. I think it's like 160 by 80.
Actually, what Alderman Klistek mentions is something that EDC as well as the council has been involved in for a number of months now, and that is identifying what we call the key development parcels within the city of Darien. Chestnut Court being one of those. We actually had Pine Tree Incorporated come in to talk about possible redevelopment of Chestnut Court Shopping Center. We've talked about other key development areas. They ranked those key development areas. In fact, they're going to come back to the council at our next meeting for your approval, because it basically is approval to a change in the comprehensive plan. The parcel that he's talking about is an undevelopable corner. It's a wetland. As Mr. Combeck has told us, if we were a floodplain, if we build anything on it, it'd have to be built on stilts because it gathers a lot of water. A number of years ago, the VFW looked to purchase it to build a clubhouse on that property, and they were told that they would never be able to build anything on that property because It is in a floodplain. Dan and I had a conversation about it. Dan's had a conversation with EDC regarding it, as well as Jordan. And the thought is that we would prefer to have the owner of that property donate it to the city of Darien. And if they donated it, then what we could possibly do with that is maybe turn it into something more, actually just make it look nice. It really couldn't be a park, but to really fix it up, because the political signs do make it look kind of bad during the political season. But Dan said there's things that could be done that would alleviate some of the issues with that property. The residents in that area, the residents who live by Hinsdale South High School, to the south of that, there's a piece of property on the corner called the Chenoy House. And the Chenoy property is actually a piece of property that is a key development area within the city. And the residents in that area have basically said, please don't put anything commercial there or retail there, because it would ruin our area. That would actually be a nicer area for redevelopment in terms of a park or a playground. So we're looking at both those parcels, and the parcel that Alderman Klistek talked about. It's something we would like to have, but we'd like to have donated to us, not necessarily go out and purchase it. Maybe the Park District wants it, I don't know. Brian?
No, just any parcel that we would go receive donation or purchase. Really, the first step is always an appraisal. So, there's a couple of steps we would need to do before the council authorizes a purchase of any property. If the council's interested in looking at this, or as the mayor said, there's a couple parcels. Again, there just are some steps we would need to do, starting with the appraisal.
Right. Lester?
Thanks, Tom, for bringing that up. That's definitely in my ward. I would love to see some new development on that corner. Every time I drive by, I look at that house, and I was like, that's the worst house.
You're talking
The toy house and the open land, too. It's kind of, anything that we can do there would be great, so.
We at the EDC meeting several meetings ago, we had about 10 homeowners who live behind that, who live over on Elm and in that area over there. And they told us, please, they thought we were going to build and put retail there. And we told them, no, we're not planning to put any retail on that corner. They said it would ruin their area. And they said they felt that they could see something there, like a park or a playground or something like that, but not a retail development. Plus, they thought the site was too small. And the ironic thing, I think Alderman Klistek will tell you, they came to the meeting the other night and they actually thanked the committee for considering that property, but not putting anything on it that would damage the integrity of the neighborhood. So those are two areas, Lester, that are considered key development areas in the city.
I do have two communications. Thank you, Mayor. One communication from Steve Kadwika from 400 block of 71st Street. They're still having major flooding issues on their property. So his question is, are there any plans to have stormwater diverted to an area in the park by putting retention area in the park, kind of like what we did with Darien Swim Club? I know that Steve has come out to the city council before and mentioned this before. We discussed it, but we never really moved forward with any plans of, trying to improve the water retention that's affecting some of the homes. But thought I'll mention that. Second, John and Tammy Hollandoner. They had a few complaints about their neighbors with toys in front of the yard, pools in front being stored, and swings, garbage dumpsters, multiple garbage dumpsters throughout the year, and the Wendy's garbage picks up too early. Sometimes they pick up at 5 a.m. Jordan did send me an email right before city council meeting addressing all of these issues basically. But my question for the city administrator is that when does it become a blight to the community? Even though storing pools and toys are in front, there's no ordinance against that. But when does it get to a point where it's a blight to the community?
Well, I mean, that's an art, not a science. You can't, we can regulate things like permanent structures in front yards, sheds, driveways, things like that. But if the house you're talking about, if the homeowner has one of those small play houses with a slide, or they have one of those baby mini pools, we don't regulate that, and there's, that would be something for the council to discuss in terms of what is acceptable or not, because there might be limits. And I'll give you an example. If somebody painted their house pink and it looked obnoxious to the neighborhood, they have a right to do that. So anything we look at, we'd really have to get specific, and it should have a reason. Just because we don't like the look is not always a reason to create an ordinance. So if the council has any interest, I'd have to bring John Murphy in, and I think I have not heard of this other than one home. So maybe a better approach again is really sit down and talk to the owners and ask them, and I think that might have been done.
Yeah, there was a conversation, and I guess the response was, we know someone in the city, so.
Yeah, that was
We can do whatever
obviously,
we want, so,
that was obviously not true, because we've already had sent notices to that property, and Karen Byrne has been out there, and you have the emails where Dan looked at it last year. So we have continued to look at that, but, what is there right now is no violation. I don't think would be close to having an ordinance that would tell that home to put that small pool or small play set in the backyard.
Lester, we had a situation, I think it's Alderman Clistic's ward, I'm not sure, where it was reported that this person had a stack of bricks that were building up in the driveway, like he was going to build something in the backyard. And he also had old tires that were stacked in the driveway, and he had a car that had 3 flat tires in the driveway. And we sent the code enforcement officer over there, and the bricks went away, and the tires went away, and the car went away. So we were able to get that person, just by communicating with them regarding how bad it looked, to change that. Some of it happens if we just talk to them and tell them, you have neighbors that are concerned about how your property looks. Sometimes it takes a little bit more than that, but in that case, the bricks were inappropriate, the tires were inappropriate, and the flat tire car was inappropriate, and that person agreed to move them.
What we would regulate, Alderman, is if they had, let's say they had an old rusty swing set in the front that they didn't use, and it was really nothing more than debris. Things like that we can act on, but I don't know if the kids are at that home use that, or I don't know if it stays out in the winter. Maybe Dan might know that, or you might be aware of that, if it's something they move to the backyard and keep it out for the summer. Or, if you want to if you want to talk to me after the meeting, maybe to get some more specifics on this property and maybe the conversations that the neighbors might have had with them, I would rather do that. I don't want to reiterate conversations neighbors might have had that I don't really have the background of. So if you want to, talk to Dan or I, we can talk through that a little more.
Anything else, Lester? Anyone else? Okay, that takes us to our mayor's report. Tonight, I am happy to announce that we are asking for the advice and consent of the council for the reappointment of Elizabeth Hayes, Steve Wernicke, Tracy Thompson, and Leslie Sweeney to the Holiday Home Decorating Committee. Can I have a motion to approve that? Alderman Belzak, seconded by Alderman Shower. Any discussion? These are people who served on the committee last year. And again, Tracy and Leslie are not here tonight, but Elizabeth and Steve Wernicke are. If no questions, can I have a roll?
Belzak.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
It's been approved. Steve and Elizabeth, you want to come forward, please?
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of Illinois. And that I will faithfully discharge. The duties of. Holiday Home Decorating Committee. According to the best of my ability. Okay, since this is a reappointment, it's the card's going to you, and we thank you for your service.
Steve or Elizabeth, do you want to announce anything about the contest and what you do, what you'll be looking for?
Well,
You have
last
to,
year we looked.
wait, go to the microphone.
Microphone.
So people can hear you.
Yeah.
Last year, we looked at probably 45 homes. I think we kind of went into the weeds and found a lot of them ourselves. A lot of times, we get some nominations from people, and we still want the community to call us, to call into the city with anything they see that, is really outstanding and everything. But last year, we looked at 45 homes, and boy, it was difficult to pick out the best ones because there was so much,
People went all out last year.
Yes, they did. So I'm hoping we have a good turnout again this year. One of the things that came up, and I can't remember if it was Leslie or Tracy that brought it up. One of them did the big poster that you see here every year. It got kind of pricey, I guess, and we were wondering if maybe there was some petty cash or something in the system someplace that could reimburse whoever prints those, the committee or whoever prints those photos for, the cost of getting them printed and things.
I think we could find that.
Okay, all right. Other than that, I think that our time to come back, the meeting that we'll be announcing the winners at is, I think it's maybe December 19th. That's a Monday, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Can you just explain how the nomination process works? There was some
December 19th.
confusion last year, and I was talking to some residents.
Oh, really?
I saw a really nice house. Now, how do I, they have to be, does someone go around, from the city go around and drive around? Or do they have to be, person have to be nominated to be selected?
Usually, somebody from, if your neighbor or you see a nice house, you're
Yeah.
out and about, it gets called into City Hall, is where it gets called in. Last
email it
year,
too.
it could be emailed too.
Okay.
It comes from the community itself.
Is there a specific person when they call in, who they talk to, or how does
I
that?
don't know if Diane
work?
Novarini maybe?
Just send us, an email or call, and I don't know if probably who's ever at the front answers. If somebody gives an address, we would take that down and forward, but I don't know
Okay.
specifically
Okay.
which of the employees at the front might do that.
Okay.
Probably a couple of them. a
Okay,
few of them.
okay.
That's how it worked last year.
Okay.
Yeah, last
We
year.
did a graphic last year with the email and a phone number, and did a kind of a cool graphic of how I did decorating, and we got it out to a lot of different sources last year, so I think that helped a lot.
Steve, when will you be going out? How soon?
We haven't,
I was looking at the calendar,
Yeah.
and like I said, I think the meeting that we'll need to announce at is on the 19th.
right.
Yes.
So if we follow kind of the same pattern, same schedule, we'll have to have our picks, our winners in to, usually Diane Novarini gets those, and on the 12th
Okay.
of December. So I'm thinking
week.
because it takes time for her to do what she has to do. And then, so I think we'll have to have, the nominations will have to be kind of cut off by about December 5th.
I think that's what we did last
We did it 2 weeks ahead. They get cut off at December 5th. And then we go out that week,
Okay.
like of the 6th, 7th, 8th, something like that.
Just to follow up on Alderman Gustafson's question, so the committee only reviews nominations. The committee doesn't actually select houses to be looked, so it's just on the submittals.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's, I
that's
think it's critical people understand this. If you really see a nice house, please, call in.
Right, right. And so then we will, if the nominations will probably have to be completed by the 5th of December.
We had it last year on the 6th.
Yeah,
I just
because it
look
was
at
the
my-
20th.
Yeah.
So if they're completed on the 5th, which is a
To
Monday,
show everybody what we did last year, this is the graphic we did in all the church.
and we put it on Darien
Nice.
Connect, I think,
Yeah.
Yes.
and the website.
Direct connect.
And then we go out, it takes us a couple nights to go out and see them all
Yeah.
and
I
discuss.
think it got a little traction.
Are we having the trolley this year?
I don't know, I don't think so.
We haven't done the trolley because of COVID
I
the
know.
last several years.
I've been asked that too. Can we go back and do the the trolley again.
Actually, we used a school bus. We didn't do a trolley.
I know, I
anymore.
did, yeah. I was on a tour on one of
We
them.
cut back because of COVID, but we did also cut
Yeah.
back because we had much less interest, and it was hard to fill up the buses.
My bus was full when I
Well, that
did the
might have
tour.
might have been the
Yeah.
only one. We used to fill up
Okay.
maybe 5 or 6
Yeah.
rides.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where we had to cancel a couple nights because we didn't get as many people signed up, but.
We could
I would
talk.
have
Might
to
be
look
something
here.
to
I don't
consider.
recall
I don't know.
if we put that in there. I believe we might have put it in the budget. I will have to check
Yeah,
again though.
check.
We'll do that.
I think
The
it'd be-
last couple years, it was canceled because
COVID, yeah.
of
Right.
COVID.
Yeah,
But like I said, if we cut off the nominations on the 5th, that gives us the
Good time.
6th, the 7th, and the 8th to make our picks or go and see everything and make the picks. And then we try to get them into, as I said, Diane Novarini by the 12th, so she can do her piece of what she has to do and print
She
out
does the
award.
certificates and everything like that.
Yeah, yeah. And then that gives us the
Gives us
19th
time to get the pictures and everything. And
Yeah.
we go to the residents who we picked and say, you've been nominated, we just want to get a little more, so we give a summation at City Hall like we did last year.
Yeah.
With the pictures.
Well,
and
I really appreciate your work. It is a fun committee, I
It
think,
is
to
a
be
fun
on.
We had a good
Yeah.
time last year.
It is fun, and it's fun to meet the people and
Oh, yeah.
talk
That's
to
the
them and
funnest part,
things.
Because they're so excited when you go to their house, really? Oh,
And we don't tell them
No.
what they won.
No.
We just tell them that they have won
They've
something,
been nominated
so
and
they
they're
don't
in the
know.
top group.
Yeah, so,
We did budget $300 for the Holiday Lights tour, so we just need to get in contact with the school shortly, and
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll have to check if that is in the works yet, but
Okay.
we did have
Okay.
something budgeted.
I'll volunteer for the tour.
does $300 cover a couple buses for,
Well, it was pretty reasonable rate.
Yeah.
It was kind of paying just for the time.
Is there
But we
a
haven't,
trolley?
again, we haven't done it for a couple of years, so we'll have to look again and make sure they have people that can do it.
Everything else.
Is
yeah.
that trolley bus available? I saw that somewhere else just about a month
haven't
ago,
checked.
driving around, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't checked.
But
We
that'd be a
just
little more
been
fun
using
than just a
school.
school bus.
It was very popular initially, a couple of years ago, like
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago. You really had to get your name in there early
Right. Oh,
if
yeah.
you wanted a seat, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
I have a couple other items I wanted to mention. As Brian noted in our workshop, we will have a special edition of the Darien Direct Connect that came out today that will provide residents with information regarding a special branch pickup program that will take place later this week. I also wanted to announce, per Alderwoman Sullivan's request, the nomination process for selecting our 2023 Darien Citizen of the Year is now underway. If you are interested in nominating an individual that you feel has made tremendous contributions to our community over a period of time, please go to our City of Darien website and click the Darien Citizen of the Year link for additional information and the nomination form. Our annual tree lighting ceremony, which will take place on Sunday, December 4th at the Darien Historical Museum, and it's going to be a little different this year. Festivities will begin at 1 p.m. at the museum with a Chris Kindle market. We currently have 6 crafters who will be there. Holiday carols will be sung by members of our Darien Fine Arts Council. They'll be dressed as Dickens characters. And a visit from Santa Claus. We're going to try to put a chair on the front porch with the decorations and have Santa pose for pictures with children. The tree lighting will take place at 4 p.m. With yours truly flicking the switch. Crafters who are interested in attending this event should contact April Padlick at 630-202-5407. And I mentioned this because it's come to my attention that a lot of people will call us and ask for information when that information is readily available through our Direct Connect. So I just wanted to say many of the answers to questions and concerns that residents have can be found in our electronic newsletter, the Darien Direct Connect. If you are not currently receiving this important newsletter, please contact Mary Belmonte at mbelmonte@darienil.gov and ask to get on the Direct Connect email list. And there is a lot of wonderful information in there. It really is, and we've really taken some time to make sure that we have pertinent information there and a nice design. Last, I wanted to mention that the Darien Chamber of Commerce is holding a casino night Friday night, this coming Friday. And the money from this event's going to go to the Cancer Smashers. So I would ask that if you like to play games of chance and have an evening with friends and have some food and drink, it's going to be at the Ashton Place. Tickets are $100. That includes one drink ticket, food, and $100 chips. And the chamber, again, is running this event, but the money is going to support the Cancer Smashers, which is our group of young people who work with the Age Foundation to raise money for cancer research. And that's my mayor's report. With that, then, I will ask the city clerk if she has a report tonight.
No report this evening, thank you.
City administrator.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
It takes us to department head information and questions. And Chief, I'm going to ask you to make your presentation at this time.
Thanks. Probably more than a year ago, I was here to talk about some part of the Safety Act. Mostly it dealt with the how it affected police and those type of things. And though the announcement talks about the Safety Act, I'm going to talk specifically about the Pretrial Fairness Act, Class B and C misdemeanors and electronic monitoring as they apply to the Safety Act. The Safety Act in total was 764 pages. The portion that dealt with Pretrial Fairness Act was 102 pages. I'm going to start reading those now, so it'll be a while. It did take me a long time to try to decipher all that stuff, and I had a PowerPoint, and it got to be in like 100 slides just to show what it did say and now what it says, and it just got way too complicated. So hopefully I'm going to pare that down a lot. Some key thoughts, though, and you've heard this before, I'm sure. 100 out of 102 state's attorneys think that there's needs some changes made to the Pretrial Fairness Act. Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police and the Sheriff's Association also believe that there's some significant changes that need to be made. And Governor Pritzker, I've heard him talk about it, and I went online to find a quote. So from September 14th, his quote was, "There have been adjustments made, and there still needs to be adjustments to continue." So obviously there is an issue that needs to be dealt with on the Pretrial Fairness Act and the Safety Act in general. There's different remedies that have been floated. Legislatively, there's people in current discussions about how to correct a number of the things. Hopefully that'll work out. Litigation-wise, there's about 60 state's attorneys that have entered into a lawsuit. I believe they've all been put together, and it's being seen to in Kankakee County, so we'll see how that works out. I've listened to a number of presentations by a lot of different people. Bob Berlin from DuPage County, I'm not sure, I probably heard him talk 6 or 8 times on the topic, a couple of formal ones and some informal discussions. Jamie Moser from Kane County, as well as some others. So looking at some different things about what is wrong and how we can look at taking care of those things. So one of the things you hear is this purge, and I think we need to understand some terms before we start throwing out some ideas of a purge. A prison, people are sentenced to prison for a period of time after being found guilty. They've already been adjudicated. They are not getting out. The Safety Act has nothing to do with those. Jail, there's 2 types of individuals that'll be in a jail. Prisoners that have been sentenced on a misdemeanor, they are not getting out of jail. The individuals that we are talking about under the Safety Act, and in particular the Pretrial Fairness Act, are those that have been detained, arrested, and are awaiting trial. They have not been convicted, and there is obviously a presumption of innocence in the United States. So that purge term, if they are talking about people getting out of prison or getting out of jail that have been adjudicated, not happening. If they're talking about a significant number of people that are going to get out of jail that are awaiting trial, that's yet to be seen. And the reason I say that is people like State's Attorney Bob Berlin, Jamie Moser over in Kane County, and others are looking at this law prospectively, meaning January 1, that's when the law goes into effect, and nothing that has happened now or up to December 31st has any effect. Other states' attorneys are saying that it is retrospective, so they are looking at current cases and case load and seeing who should be allowed out of jail to await trial versus staying in jail awaiting trial. So there could be a purge, but it's going to be not people that have been adjudicated, and it's only going to be people awaiting trial, and it's going to be people awaiting trial that fall into these categories that I'm going to be speaking about next. Before we get there, though, I want to talk about levels of evidence. So when we talk about some levels of evidence in policing and others, we talk about reasonable suspicion. That's came from a case out of Ohio, and it's been codified into our state of Illinois statutes. And sometimes you'll hear this term about stop and frisk and those type of things. Basically, the police can have an inference that a crime has, or about to be committed and can make a stop. Next level is probable cause. That's the level of evidence that you need in order to get a search warrant, get an arrest warrant, and those type of things. Next, preponderance of the evidence. You'll see that in civil matters. When we have a complaint against an officer, that's the level of evidence that we use. Basically, it's more likely that it did occur than did not occur, 51% to 49%, if you may. So then you get to guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not all doubt, it's reasonable doubt. And so when we talk about people getting out of jail, we're talking about those two things, probable cause and guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not just a whim that people are going to, that get arrested and go to jail. People get arrested for a clear and convincing evidence demonstrating that the subject arrested has committed that crime. That is the level of discussion at a hearing on detainment. And we used to, and I'm going to make that mistake a number of times tonight, I hope not. We used to always call it bond hearings or bond trial, bond court, those type of things. That term is gone now, and it's a detention hearing, but I'll make that mistake. But if I do say bond hearing, I actually mean detention hearing. So what is the purpose of cash bail? It's meant to ensure attendance in court. Pretty basic. There is some unintended consequences of that cash bail, and that's the reason why we're trying to make a change. Some with significant money can bond out. There may be a danger to the public or to the community or to a specific person, but because they have the money, they're capable of getting out of jail. Some without means are staying in custody even though they have committed the same type of crime, others that have the money to bond out of jail. So a big part of it is trying to be fair. Personally, I think we can be fair, but we can also be safe. And I think that's when you talk about Jamie Moser and Bob Berlin. I can't remember the state's attorney down in Champaign County. The reason I use those three is that they are in active negotiations trying to fix the issue. But they have saw and witnessed a New Jersey model, and that's the model that they're pushing our legislators to move to. New York and New Jersey both went at about the same time, I think in 2019, but I'm not positive, eliminating cash bail. One state, New Jersey, or New York rather, their crime rate has gone up by about 31%. New Jersey has stayed about the same. So it can be done that people can be afforded the opportunity to be out of jail to await trial, and yet our communities can be safe. Basically, there's 3 levels of release options: cite and release, detainable, and conditional release. And I'm going to put them in that order just because it's easier to define them. So cite and release is at one end of the spectrum, the lower level of crimes: Class B misdemeanor, C misdemeanor, traffic, petty offenses, business, and the like. Detainable are those that are very serious. You're talking about murder, criminal sexual assault, aggravated criminal sexual assault, predatory criminal sexual assault, aggravated kidnapping, and the like. Then in the middle are all the others, and so you have Class A misdemeanors, lower level felonies, non-probationary felonies, and the like. So I'm going to do my best to try to explain all those things to you, and I'm not an attorney. So cite and release, it says law enforcement shall, and that's a very important word, issue a citation in lieu of custodial arrest. So we are mandated to issue a citation, but there are 4 exceptions to that shall. If the person does not have proper identification, or we cannot properly identify them, we can take them into custody. Obvious threat to the community, you can take them into custody. Obvious medical condition, we can get them the assistance they need. They can obviously sign a waiver with the paramedics and not go. And it says an obvious mental health condition, but it poses a risk to their own safety. So you're talking some type of suicidal or some type of thing. It's a higher level of thing, just not having a break with reality. There's a bar that has to be attained there. So there's a lot of issues around there. More about for us as a police department, what we can do and what we can't do, level of force to enforce this type of situation when it's only a cite and release. The Safety Act and other portions of it make a lot of criminal and civil sanctions toward the police, decertification of the police. So the police are going to be very cautious in their response to some of these types of situations. So you heard about a subject that's trespassing on the property. Criminal trespass requires a prior warning, so we're going to assume a prior warning. Suspect refuses to leave. You call the police. The police know who the person is. They're a frequent flyer. So we know the identification is made. The person's not threatening anyone. The person has no medical issues, and the person, though, may not have all his faculties, but is not a threat to himself or herself. We are not going to be able to move that person. We can issue them a citation. It's got to fit those 4 criteria before we can move that individual. So what types of offenses are we talking about when we talk about B and C misdemeanors? Well, it's more than just B and C misdemeanors. It's local ordinances. So if there's a local ordinance only, like loud noise, barking dog, those type of things, that there's not a commensurate state charge, that's what we're talking about. Also, local charges where we adopted the state charges, such as a retail theft or a battery or an assault. We can charge those locally as well. Class B misdemeanor, criminal trespass to land, criminal damage to property. Class C misdemeanor, disorderly conduct, traffic acts or offenses. Most of those are going to be cited and released. It's not much different than it is now. So speeding, display traffic control signals or traffic control signs, they're going to sign and go. Petty offenses, business offenses, and the like. So there's not that much change in reality. So local ordinances never went to jail. We cited and released them at the scene. Traffic, most of the time, depending on the charge, they were cited and released and go on about your business. Not all traffic offenses are cite and release, because there are Class A misdemeanors involved in some traffic things, such as DUI, driving while license suspended, and fleeing and eluding, and the like. So there are going to be times where violations of the traffic code are going to be conditional releases. There's going to have to be issues with policy here set up by myself about when we're going to make a custodial arrest and when we're not in regards to a number of Class A misdemeanors. So the next one to talk about is detainable. And so when we're talking about detainable, the pretrial release, the statute, all persons charged with an offense shall be eligible for pretrial release before conviction. All persons charged with an offense shall be eligible for pretrial release before conviction. Pretrial release may only be denied when two things happen, or one or the other happens. One is a violation of offense listed in 110.6.1, and I'll talk about that in a second. And the other is a high likelihood of a willful flight. And then obviously you have to have that court hearing. So let's tackle this first item about 110.6.1. So that says, upon verification petitioned by the state, the court shall hold a hearing and may deny a defendant pretrial release only if, and there's 7 conditions. So condition 1, defendant is charged with a forcible felony, which the person can be sentenced to imprisonment without probation. Okay, we're going to have 2 different categories here. Probation and non-probationable. I don't even think that's a word, but I'll use it a lot. And then it goes on, and the defendant's pretrial release poses a specific, real, and present threat to any person or the community. So let's look at, we're going to come back to this idea of specific threat, but we'll talk about this forcible felony. What are we talking about there? Or there's not many of them, actually. First degree murder, predatory criminal sexual assault of a child, aggravated criminal sexual assault, residential burglary, aggravated arson, and aggravated kidnapping. Those are it that we're talking about, where there's probationable. And so then the state's attorney in those situations, because it's an and, would have to show that the defendant pretrial release poses a specific, real, and present threat to any person or the community. So I think that standard is pretty close to what we do now, only there's not going to be a bond associated to it. So I think those guys are going to be staying in jail, hopefully. If I haven't confused you yet, I probably will be, because now we're going to move into conditional release, because we got those extremes, right? So kind of the lower level guys, cited and released, more serious, they're non-probationable acts, felonies. They're most likely going to stay in jail to await trial. It all depends really on how well the state's attorney is going to be able to articulate a clear and present danger. So moving on to conditional release. A couple things. One, just right off the bat, there's a whole list of conditions. 2 of those conditions have been removed. So you can no longer drug test a person that has been released prior to trial, and you cannot prevent out-of-state travel, which is kind of odd because you're talking about willful flight, but then by statute you can't you can allow them to travel out of state. So what type of felonies are we talking about now that are probationable? And I think this is what you see sometimes advertised and talked about on social media. Aggravated battery, robbery, aggravated robbery, burglary, arson, kidnapping, threatening a public official, intimidation, hate crimes, second-degree murder, aggravated assault, disorderly conduct, where there's a threat against the school. So in those cases, those fit a different set of criteria. So they get this idea about conditional release. So there's a high likelihood that people that get charged with those are going to be released with some type of conditions. Also, we didn't talk about Class A misdemeanors, retail thefts, theft under $300, battery, assault. Those two fall under that same category. So the release on own recognizance, the term used to be a bond, and there was a cash bond. If you release without cash bond, it's released on your own recognizance. So it used to be one paragraph, now it's about 3 paragraphs long. It's presumed that a defendant is entitled to release on personal recognizance on the condition that the defendant does 3 things: attend court, doesn't commit another crime, and he's in compliance with the conditions of his release. Detention shall only be imposed when it's determined that the defendant poses a specific, real, present danger to a person or has the high likelihood of willful flight. So there's that willful flight again, so we should really take care of that term. And again, that is a high bar. Willful flight means planning or attempting to intentionally evade prosecution by concealing oneself. And it goes on to say, simple past non-appearance in court is not evidence of future intent to evade prosecution. So we talked before, we have about 400 people wanted on warrants in Darien across the state. I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot. And so there's a lot of people that avoid going to court, and there's failed to appear warrants out there. Under this new statute, there's not going to be warrants. There's going to be a summons, and we'll get into that a little later as well. But that summons, depending on circumstances, can in fact turn into a warrant. Just a simple story. About 3 years ago, we had a home invasion in Darien. One of the offenders was just arrested a couple weeks ago. It took 3 years, ourselves, U.S. Marshal, Chicago Police Department, to go to Chicago area periodically to try to serve that warrant. It took a long time to get that warrant served, and hopefully now we'll have that person in custody and go on to trial and hopefully give closure to the victims there. Second item of reasons why you can deny pretrial release: the defendant's charged with stalking or aggravated stalking. That's a good item. Third is that there's a order of protection. So again, trying to protect family. Fourth is domestic battery and aggravated domestic battery. You can argue a denial of pretrial release. But I'll give you this example. So in the park, and you walk up and punch your spouse. So there's a higher potential of pretrial release being denied. That same set of circumstances, but now it's a neighbor, so it's somebody that's known to you, but it is not a domestic. That is a lower threshold. There is no exception like they are for a domestic. A stranger comes up and does that same act. Again, there's nothing in the act about domestic violence. It's in there about domestic violence, not other known people, strangers, and the like. So there is a higher threshold for domestic, which is a good thing, but there is a disparity there. The fifth is a violation of Article 11. Article 11 is most of the sex offenses. 6 is the, it's oddly phrased, the defendant charged with any of these violations. What they're talking about is most of the gun violations: unlawful use of a weapon, unlawful use of a weapon by a felon. So mostly gun-related offenses. And then if it doesn't fit in all those, 7 is high likelihood of willful flight to avoid prosecution. And it goes on to talk about any of the felonies that I described earlier as an A1 through 5 or a felony offense other than Class 4. So items that are not listed: aggravated DUI, great bodily harm or death, all drug offenses except class 4 possession. So drug trafficking, delivering of a controlled substance, possession with intent to deliver, all those. Drug-induced homicide, they are not subject to detention unless there's a willful flight risk. Class 4 felonies that are not subject to detention include aggravated fleeing and looting, disorderly conduct where there's a threat of destruction to a school building, disorderly conduct where there's a threat of violence, death, or great bodily harm directed at a person of a school, at a school, mob action, communicating with jurors and witnesses, concealing or aiding a fugitive, obstructing justice. So there's a lot of cases that have that burden of willful flight. So there's a lot of issues there with the Pretrial Fairness Act, I think, that need to be resolved. I'm confident or hoping that people like Jamie Moser over in Kane, can't remember, I think it's a woman, down in Champaign County, Bob Berlin, will hopefully be able to impress upon legislators that this needs to change. So let's skip a little bit to home detention. And so there's some unique changes that were made to the rule about home detention. And so 725 ILCS 110/5G, if you wanted to look those things up, talks about when electronic monitoring can be used as a condition of release. H, a defendant shall be given custodial credit for each day on home confinement. And just because you have an electronic monitoring is not a requirement for home detention to be considered custodial for purposes of sentencing credit. So what does that legal jargon mean? You can be arrested for a battery, let's say, and I'm making this up. The typical sentence is 6 months. I don't know what the reality is. So I get released. I just have a home, supposed to stay at my home, but I don't have an electronic monitoring, or I do have electronic monitoring. Those 6 months of never being in jail count as 1 day, good day served. So if I get a 6-month sentence, I serve no time in jail. That's what that means. It also goes on to say, under electronic home monitoring, that used to be away from the transponder or being away from the GPS was a class 3 felony. Now it requires that person to remain in violation for 48 hours. So now if I'm have the ankle bracelet, but I'm away from the transponder for 47 hours, I go back home. A lot of harm can be done in 47 hours. I have not violated this statute. So again, back to credit for time served, I can do a lot of things. I'm not sitting in my house. I am not bound by much, but I get credit for all this time served, and that's not, to me, that's inappropriate. I talked about, as I was going through here, couple different places where policy needs to be set. More policy needs to be set. Criminal histories, rap sheets, you'll hear that term thrown around on TV. Criminal histories are created by fingerprints. So if we're citing and releasing, we do not have a fingerprint. And so that person, that violation does not get added there. If they're, most of the time, the class A and above, those are going to be custodial, and we'll probably take the fingerprints at the time. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So the second option is their first time at court, that the fingerprints will be done then. Who does that? Do I have to send an officer to Wheaton to make that happen? Same thing with pretrial hearings. Do I have to send an officer there to make that happen? I don't know, I think this law was written for Cook County and maybe some of the collar counties. When you get farther out, I have no idea how they're going to be able to meet any of these requirements or restrictions. I'm Tazewell County, I'm just, how often do they have court? How often do they have bond hearings? Because the court says, the statute says that those are in-person hearings. They're not done electronically. So that'll be very interesting to see how that plays out and how we're going to work out some of these logistical items as we move along. So that's pretty much wraps up what I had prepared. I think that public is upset about some of the things that are going on. Obviously, you've heard a lot of that type of thing, especially with the political atmosphere. You guys don't have any say-so in the matter so much, other than the same as anybody else, where you can contact your state representative on the issue and urge them to take a look at some of these items. And they know what the items are because they've been in negotiations, like I said, with Bob Berlin and company to try to work that out. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer those if they may have. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how is the New York cashless bond different than the New Jersey one, and why? What can we do to be like obviously you said they were trying to make it more like New Jersey. What does New Jersey have that this doesn't have? Or vice versa? One of the big items in New York or Illinois follows almost exactly what New York has done. A couple of things: their willful flight definition is much different. A lower bar to attain. Some of the classifications of offenses are different. And I just read it before I came here too. There's a couple other items in there that make it easier on the, a lot of the times it talks about a specific threat to an individual. They still have in their statute the threat to the community.
New Jersey has it does not require as high a level for the state's attorney to keep someone detained. Is that correct?
Yeah, based on this
Basically.
willful flight and based on the threat to another party.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what Berlin was talking about when we were at that
Correct.
at that meeting. That we would actually like to move to what New Jersey has versus what New York has.
Correct.
There, as the chief said, there are working groups that are down in Springfield. We are currently in what's called the veto session, and there is a likelihood that this will not come up in the veto session. In January, it's called the lame duck session, which means you still have legislators who lost elections who will be down in Springfield, who will be passing legislation. There is a good possibility that this will come up in Springfield during the lame duck session. There's a lot of belief, and Chief and I have talked about this, and I think it's wishful thinking, but there's a lot of talk that by the middle of January to the end of January, a lot of the cash bail issues and the B and C misdemeanors are going to change. That's going to be remedied to where it's more manageable. Whether or not that happens, we don't know, but there's a lot of talk about what's going on in Springfield right now and that those changes will be made. A lot of people will say, well, why don't you work to repeal it? The fact of the matter is it's not going to be repealed. The fact of the matter is that that's not going to happen with the state legislature, but there is a good possibility that when you think about it for a second, a 760-page bill got passed at 4 o'clock in the morning by one vote. And there's a good chance that a lot of state legislators never fully read that bill, and that when they really see the response of residents to what might happen, a lot of them are going to think twice, and they're going to make the changes that are necessary to make. And I believe that. I'll be on a task force through the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, and we'll be working with the governor's office to solicit our recommendations, and we'll be working in concert with the Illinois police chiefs, Bob Berlin, and other legislators to make sure that that happens. And again, that seems to be the goal. So we'll see whether or not that happens. But I think your report was excellent, Chief. I know at times, I've read through the bill, and just to show you what's there in the bill, it's 760 pages. But if you go through all the redactions, all the things that are crossed out and changed, it amounts to about 35 pages that actually make sense. So as long as it is, there's really not a lot there. So, and I think the other thing that needs to be mentioned is there are good aspects to this bill. The police body cameras, other aspects are good. I don't know if the chief agrees with me on all that, but come on, Craig.
There's some good stuff. Body cameras are great. We talked. Alderman Kenny helped me out on a situation. Well, tried to help me out. The person kept talking about the police officer was tailgating him. I don't know if you remember this. And so I reviewed the videotape, and I did the measurements and did all the stuff. And I don't believe the officer was ever more than 2.5 car lengths away from the person. He swears that he was right on his tail end the whole way and all this stuff. It just never happened. And I showed, I think he called you for complaining. I'm not sure how he got there.
He called me to complain, and I asked to come to see the videotape.
And so we did show the videotape, and it's obvious that it never happened. Had another situation probably about a year ago where an officer stopped an Asian woman, and she complained that he had said something about Asian people don't know how to drive, or they're worse drivers, or something. I don't remember what the exact words were. Again, everything is videotaped, everything is audio taped, and I'm thinking, well, there's got to be something in this statement that was close, and she just misinterpreted. Not true. There was nothing ever said even close to that. So body cameras are going to be great. I think it's going to prove officers right almost all the time, most of the time for certain. And so they're great. There's some issues with body cameras. Some of it was fixed with the trailer bills. There's some still lingering issues that need to be corrected, but all in all, the body cameras is a good example. I think there's still some tweaks that need to happen with the discipline of officers, but in that situation, what they did was there was a couple different bills that were all together and that they put together. One of them was the Disciplinary Act, and the legislators were actually working with some practitioners in the field on that one, so that one was closer to being very well. There's some issues that I think need to be dealt with. There are some answers that need to be dealt with, but yeah, there's some good aspects to the bill.
I know there was a lot of information tonight. Does anybody have a question? Eric?
Yeah, Chief, will this act force your officers to spend less time actually patrolling and tied up with some of those other things, or?
No.
No?
It'll have no impact that way.
Okay.
If anything, it might clear up some time because it's going to be a cite and release. I said that before, and I don't know that that's really going to free anybody up, because that's what we do a lot of the time. We've had a number of conversations about retail theft as an example.
Yeah.
A lot of the retail thefts are cite and released. We never bring them down to the PD. So I don't know that, I don't see that that's going to happen until or unless some of the policy decisions come out about who has to watch prisoners prior to the pretrial hearing. So if we have to take somebody to the hearing and wait around till that's done, that might be take an officer off the street. I don't know that that's how it's going to happen. It may very well be that DuPage County, is going to handle those things, and we just need to drop them off, and they're going to make all the arrangements. I don't know that answer, but I don't think, off the top right now, I don't think it's going to cause any more pull on manpower.
I think we're really fortunate that we have Bob Berlin Bob Berlin has a very good understanding, I think, of this law, and I think Bob Berlin's approach, as you said,
Right.
is probably the smarter of the approaches that state's attorneys are going to take. So, and I know how hard he's working to get things changed, so I would caution people, when you're watching, like you said, Greg, all the political commercials kind of present extremes that really don't exist or not true.
Well, you just saw me trying to explain these things. That doesn't go in a flyer. Purge goes into a flyer. And also, like when I heard that purge, I tried to go find, because I read where it was in the Chicago Tribune. I remember today. Again, I would like to know the context of, the fact finders that said it wasn't purge. If somebody within the politics said that people are going to get out of jail that have been adjudicated or out of prison that have been adjudicated, that would have been wrong. I don't know if that was the comment or the context that this was made. I don't know. But it's definitely political season, and can't wait till tomorrow's done.
Chris, or Tom, I'm sorry.
With any new law, I would assume there's going to be challenges to the law, so they anticipate a lot of Supreme Court cases coming forward from January to July, I would assume.
I doubt that anything goes to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
I do believe that there's going to be challenges. So when a state's attorney like Bob Berlin or those are going to interpret as prospective, I can foresee a defense attorney trying to get their client in to a judge and try to use the law post January 1st as a criteria. And then the state attorney is going to say no, and then there's going to have to be somebody calls a tie, and then it's going to go to an appellate. So then a decision will be made that direction. But your statement about court cases, I believe you're going to be correct, that there's going to be a lot of court cases. There'll be arguments about what is willful flight, and there's going to be a judge somewhere in the state that's going to deny it based on willful flight. There's going to be a judge somewhere else that says, yeah, that criteria is willful flight, and somebody's going to have to call ties on those. So yes, I think there's going to be a number of cases. I doubt that. Well, they could go to the Illinois Supreme Court. I don't foresee a case where they're going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Chief, today, we still consider a flight risk. They still, when you go to court, they factor in the flight risk now, right?
Correct, but the criteria is different. It's now, you heard that definition, it's willful. I have to pre-plan of that willful flight is now a pre-plan. It's not, in the past you would talk about passports and means and all kinds of different things. Now it's very specific level, and so I think, and that's part of what the issue is trying to prove this willful flight based on this definition. But you're correct that there is currently flight risk, but now when they put that, I don't know, is that an adjective, in front of flight, now we have a different set of criteria. Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you,
You
Chief.
did talk about eliminating warrants and having summons instead, and I don't think you ever followed up
that's
on
a
that.
big one, and I appreciate the reminding me of that. So currently, if a person fails to show, the remedy is to get a summons and not a warrant. Or after the summons, I think they have 48 hours to serve that summons. Well, a summons is not a warrant, so a summons would not go into the lead system. So like this case I talked about before where this person was found in Chicago, that was a warrant. That's in the lead. So when they came across that person and ran his name, came back wanted. That's not going to happen. So on a summons. So then there's 4 criteria that the judge can take. He can verbally reprimand. He can change that civil summons into a warrant. And there's 2 more that are escaping me right now. I think one has to deal with some time.
Are there statistics on people that miss court in New York and New Jersey now that have reconnaissance bonds? or what-
I did not research that one. I'm guessing that there probably is. I just don't know what that.
I'm just
that
wondering
number
how
is.
much of a change it was pre
Yeah.
2019. How many people
Yeah.
showed up in court and how many are not showing up
I-
now? If there is a big difference.
And I don't know if this correlates, but back in the day, early 80s, when I was writing tickets as a young policeman, you always got a bond. So you either got, I think tickets at the time were $75, a bond card, or took the driver's license. And then sometime in the 80s, they went away from that and let you sign the ticket and go. I worked in Aurora then. I think we had about 300 warrants, and that went over to probably about 4,000, 5,000 warrants. Where there's a correlation there with this act, I don't know. But I imagine that there's going to be a lot of no-shows without a warrant. And I'm glad you brought up warrants as well. Again, prospective. So in DuPage County, Kane County, if you're arrested on a warrant that was issued, say it's March of 2023, but it was issued in November of 2022, that warrant's going to have a bond associated with it. Again, Bob Berlin's looking at prospective. So that person that's arrested, you can still make that arrest and still take that bond until it's challenged by the court. So then going forward, most warrants are not going to have a warrant or bond attached to them as they are now.
Does Bob Berlin do every case, or he has assistants that look at the...
Oh, no, he probably rarely does cases. He's
Okay,
much more
okay.
of a manager. And so it will be assistants doing that work. He's obviously, he has the power as the state's attorney and being asked to represent, be one of the representatives of the 102 state's attorneys. So he has a little bit more say in the matter. But he's going to set the policy, just no different than I'm going to have to set a policy on Class A misdemeanors, Class 4 felons, all the other stuff that
Okay.
has to happen. That's a policy decision.
I was like, holy cow, that's a lot of cases for one guy.
No.
Well, he's got to have helper somewhere, yeah.
And that's another thing that we haven't talked about is the money. So when we talk about body-worn cameras being a nice thing, it's also very expensive. It's going to be expensive for us, but it's also going to be expensive for the state's attorney's office because now they have to review every one of those body cam footage and everything else. And he has estimated another 13 assistant state's attorneys in order to process all the stuff now. So it's definitely going to be costly as well.
You mentioned costs. I just thought about something. It's even a bigger cost when, when you have people that are wrongfully convicted, and then they get out of prison, and then you have these huge settlements that the state has to pay for.
Yeah.
$30-40 million settlements. So we have to look at it from that aspect too, that we get it right.
Absolutely need to get
Body
it right.
cameras,
There's
I
no
think
doubt
body
there,
cameras help
Alderman, but
get us
we're
right,
also
get it
talking,
right.
not talking about a conviction at court. We're talking about a pre-trial.
And that's usually
And-
what happens, right? The pre-trial, leading up to court, where some of the most wrongful convictions happen.
No
You know,
wrongful convictions happen at pre-trial.
No, I'm saying that's what leads into it. It starts there, it goes to court, and then they're convicted. So all I'm saying is that the cost is even bigger, more astronomical, once you
There-
get to that level. Once you
There's
get that
definitely
far. Yeah.
a cost associated with wrongful convictions for sure. And regardless of whether there's a cost, it's just wrong, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we got to definitely pay attention to that. I don't see the correlation between the Safety Act and in particular the pretrial Fairness Act and wrongful convictions. I just don't see that nexus. I think that whether a person is detained or not detained, or today bonded or not bonded, has much to do with the trial once it happens, because there's nothing at pre-trial that gets entered into evidence. So, but your point is well taken on making sure that we get it right. Absolutely, both monetarily and just as a human right to make sure that we're right there.
Anything else? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nice job.
That takes us to our treasurer's report. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, I'm requesting council's approval of warrant, not summons number, 222313 in the amount of $934,591.58 from the listed funds. Payroll for the 2 periods ended October 20th and November 3rd in the amount of $539,466.52 for a total to be approved of $1,474,058.10.
Motion to approve. Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Shower. Any questions or comments? If none, the roll.
Kenny?
Aye.
Shower?
Aye.
Vaughn?
Aye.
Clistic?
Aye.
Gustafson?
Aye.
Belzak?
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
Warrant's been approved. The monthly report, Mike.
Monthly report for the 5 months ended September 30th reflects general fund year-to-date revenue of $9,624,418, expenses of $6,393,722, current balance of $6,129,631. Water fund year-to-date revenue $2,461,826, expenses of $2,555,998, current balance of $3,352,698. Motor fuel tax fund year-to-date revenue $621,110, expenses $305,866, current balance $1,253,279. Water depreciation fund year-to-date revenue $14,316, expenses of $1,028,880, current balance $2,742,142, and the capital improvement fund year-to-date revenue of $1,728,073, expenses of $2,683,584, current balance $14,717,920.
Thank you, Mike. Standing committee reports. Any of the aldermen have information for the council? Alderman Belzak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next Municipal Services Committee meeting will be on Monday, November the 28th at 6 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. Alderman Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next police committee meeting will be on Monday, November 21st, 2022, 6 p.m. across this parking lot in the police training room.
Brian, do we have a date for the next?
I'm sorry,
admin?
6:30, folks, 6:30.
You do, Joanne?
I do. The next Administrative Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, December the 5th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Number 14 on our agenda is questions and comments related to our agenda. Anyone have comments related to the agenda as stated? If not, we go to old business. There being none, we go to consent agenda, and I have to read all these items. Item A, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution to enter an engineering agreement with Christopher B. Burke Engineering for the 2023 Street Maintenance Program contract bid booklet in an amount not to exceed $36,350. Item B, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an engineering agreement with Christopher B. Burke Engineering for pavement corings for the proposed 2023 street maintenance program in an amount not to exceed $16,200. Item C, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution accepting a proposal from Consulting Engineering for the 2022 water leak survey in an amount not to exceed $12,916.80. Item D, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution approving an extension of a proposal from J.C. Landscaping and Tree Service at the proposed schedule of prices for the rear yard drainage assistance program for a period of May 1st, 2023 through April 30th, 2024. Item E, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution approving an extension of a proposal from J.C. Landscaping and Tree Service at schedule of prices for the placement of topsoil and the purchase and placement of fertilizer and sod for landscaping restoration services for a period of May 1st, 2023 through April 30th, 2024. Item F, Consideration of a motion to approve a resolution approving an extension of a proposal from Shreve Services Incorporated for topsoil at the specific unit prices for various public works projects for a period of May 1st, 2023 through April 30th, 2024. Item G, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution approving an extension of a proposal from Vulcan Construction Materials for the purchase and pickup of stone for various public works projects at the proposed unit prices for a period of May 1st, 2023 through April 30th, 2024. Item H, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution approving an extension of a proposal from Vulcan Construction Materials for the purchase and delivery of stone for public works projects for a period of May 1st, 2023 through April 30th, 2024. Item I, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the purchase of 125 banners from Bannerville in an amount not to exceed $10,625. Item J, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the purchase of BioMelt AG64, the organic de-icing accelerator product from S&I Solutions in an amount not to exceed $11,205, which is 4,500 gallons at $2.49 a gallon. Item K, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the purchase of alternative liquid de-icer and anti-icing products from Industrial Systems Limited in an amount not to exceed $62,000. Item L, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept a proposal from EJ Equipment Incorporated for the purchase of 2 new trackless tractors, MT7, for safety sidewalk snow clearing operations in an amount not to exceed $372,950. And item M, consideration of a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept a proposal from Industrial Systems for the purchase of de-icing storage tanks and components in an amount not to exceed $39,415. Motion to approve the consent agenda. Alderman Belzak, seconded by Alderman Gustafson, and the roll.
Belzak.
Aye.
Gustafson.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Clisdick.
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
Consent agenda has been approved. Takes us to new business. We have one item under new business. Consideration of a motion directing the city staff to negotiate the following agreements and variations at 7702 Cass Avenue, which is the southwest corner of Cass and Plainfield Road, for marquee signage, lease easement agreement, landscape agreement, construction easement, maintenance agreement, and variation sign code. Motion to approve. Alderman Belzak, seconded by Alderman Shower. Discussion. Alderman Belzak.
What exactly is the negotiation going to be? Is it going to be in regard to what features it's going to have, or is it just with the landlord to make sure they're okay with us doing basically what we please? And when we come back with this, with dollar amounts, are there going to be options? Like, I think Treasurer Corn made a valid point about whether we want to spend $50,000 on a water feature or not. And when it comes back to us, I would like to have, an expensive option, a mid-price option, and an inexpensive option to look at, or whatever it ends up being. But, I don't know if $50,000 for a water feature is money well spent.
I think, as Dan said when he presented, and it's too bad he's not here to explain it further, but I believe he said in the work session there's contingencies built into almost all of
No,
these.
there is, but eventually it's going to come back to us to approve something.
Correct.
And at that point, I think we need to be educated as to what our options are.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, because the city council needs to approve it, the important thing is to make sure the landowner will give us access to the property. And I think that's where some of those things come into play. But in terms of the actual amenities, you will definitely,
You'll be voted on those.
yeah.
Oh, I understand
you'll
that.
have
I'm just saying, so I have no problem with approving this today because it's something we need to do preliminarily. I just want to know what's going to happen on the back end when will there be
You'll have options.
other discussions amongst us as to what we really want to put there, once we get it worked out with the landlord.
Yeah, I think we'll probably be able to bring most of this, all of this back together at the same time. And so for the features, we'll definitely have, the opportunity for the council to review. You might want a really nice sign, but you might not want a water feature.
Right,
So
right.
you wouldn't be mandated to have that. We just need to make sure that the owner's aware that.
No, today obviously I understand what we're doing today and why we're doing it.
Right,
It makes total
right.
sense. I just want to know what they're going to come back with.
Yeah, and my only point about the today is, so when we negotiate an easement agreement with the property owner, we'll get an easement to put a structure in.
Right.
And that, they won't dictate what type of structure. The council will dictate that.
Okay.
Any further discussion? If none, the roll.
Belzak,
Aye.
Shower,
Aye.
Clistic,
Aye.
Gustafson,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
The item's approved. It takes us to our, number 18, questions and comments and announcement of a general nature. Again, this is an opportunity for the public to make comments or ask questions on any issue. And again, there's a 3-minute limit per person. So does anyone from the audience like to address the council tonight? This would be the time to do it. Aletta,
Yeah.
come up to the microphone.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, I missed the reappointment of my membership to the environmental committee, and I understood that it was gonna be tonight, but maybe I missed that.
Actually, I will come to your next meeting to swear in the people who were reappointed, but I haven't been given that date yet.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
It's always good to see you, though, Aletta. Sir, do you want to, please come forward. You just state your name, sir.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Steve Shanks. I'm a Darien resident of Ward 6. All of you have received an email from me, though it was not brought up directly earlier. I've come here tonight as a concerned resident, but also as a father. At home tonight, my wife is putting our 20-month-old daughter to sleep the night before an election day, which will be of drastic importance for my own child's future. When we purchased our home here a few years ago, it was with the intent to raise a family in this district, specifically for the educational opportunities it offered. However, Centercast School District 66 is on the precipice of extreme hardship if its referendum is not approved. As parents, we see our child's future school district in crisis, fueled by misinformation and attempts to divide the residents against one another, which are being supported by an elected official who should be a voice representing all of his constituents and not his own personal interests. Alderman Gustafson has for months made public his personal opposition. While running signs in his front yard that falsely inflate the cost he would pay, these misrepresented numbers were called out in patch articles. At a school board meeting in March, he identified himself by his elected position, speaking about how the increase would affect 15% of his Ward 6 that are retirees, another statistic that his accuracy could not be verified by FOIA requests to the city administration and is in question. In multiple articles published in our local patch, since being identified as alderman, he has been on record opposing the referendum, not encouraging voting without taking a side. He has also falsely defamed the school district in print. Last month, he was even heard by multiple individuals advocating for the failure of the school district and wanting the state to take over. No, this referendum is not a matter voted on by the city, but he is the primary representative within this building for the families and homeowners within District 66. He's used his position with the weight as an alderman to push his own agenda rather than advocate for over 1,000 children who currently attend the public schools serving his ward. Instead, he would rather sow division and frame this as an issue of seniors versus teachers wishing for a state takeover and the continued hemorrhaging of educational opportunities. The school district is in a state of educational triage. He should have come to the city administration to help promote community outreach and increase information about upcoming school board meetings, or the community engagement forum created by the district, which sought to bridge the divide and find common ground between both sides? Why has Alderman Gustafson not been the first party to reach across the aisle to promote civility instead of vitriol? Why has City Hall been left without a voice and advocate for those Darien families with children who reside within District 66? Our entire community, but especially our children, deserve better in a nice place to live like Darien. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to make a comment? Anyone from the council have anything to say?
I really don't even want to respond to that. Most of that was totally false that was given. The only thing I've ever said at the very beginning of this process was that I want people to look at Illinois House Bill 7, which is school district consolidation, not school consolidation, district consolidation. This is an Illinois bill that is sponsored by Illinois Representative Rita Mayfield from Waukegan. That bill was voted down initially. It's going to come back after all the change over here in this election. And that's the critical piece of it, is that I want more money to go to kids. That's all I'm looking for, and that's what this bill does. That's the only thing I've ever mentioned. House Bill 7, read it.
Anyone else? Well, I hope everyone does get out and vote tomorrow. I know the polls, the lines will be long. They were long today. They'll probably be longer tomorrow. I think it is critical to vote and express your feelings. As I said in an article I just wrote in the last Direct Connect, when people don't go to vote, they give more power to those who do vote to make decisions for them. And I think it's critical that people exercise that right to vote tomorrow. Again, it's going to be a busy day. I'm sure it's going to result in some real changes. I don't know how the vote will go. There's 2 school districts that have referendums. I know they're both dependent on those referendums passing. I think I think that the welfare of the children within the city of Darien is critical. However that vote turns out tomorrow for both 63 and 66, I hope that disparate sides can come together and make decisions that are in the best interest of the children and the district and the city. If there's nothing else, I ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Kenny, seconded by Alderman Vaughn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, folks. And thank you to the audience for being patient.